Hey everybody, this is Pastor Jonathan, and I'm looking forward to being with all of our confirmation class this Sunday, and as many parents as can come as well, family members. We're going to be meeting, as you know, at Union Bethel, AME Zion Church here in Cornelius. Their service begins at 10. We will arrive there, plan on getting there about 9:50, and we'll have a chance to visit some with the pastor and some of the members before the service starts at 10 o'clock. And we should also have a chance to visit with them a little bit after the service is over and ask questions, kind of like we've done when we visited the Jewish synagogue and the Greek Orthodox Church in Mooresville. So we're looking forward to that this Sunday at Union Bethel AME Zion Church. And they are still wearing masks as part of their response to COVID, and so we ask that you also bring a mask with you and wear it to church on that Sunday when we're at Union Bethel AME Zion. Now, some of you have asked, AME Zion, what kind of church is this? Is this a Methodist church? What does AME stand for? What's their relationship to other Methodist churches like Mount Zion, for example? What's the deal with all that? So I just wanted to take a few minutes to make this video and kind of explain that to you and let you know, so that when you get there you'll have a little bit of context for understanding the relationship among different Methodist churches. So to understand how this kind of unfolded the way it did, we have to think about it, our history, for just a minute. Of course, Methodism started in England under the leadership of John Wesley. We were a part of the Church of England in the 18th century in England. We were a movement within the Church of England. We were not a separate church when we began. We were just a movement within the Church of England in the 18th century under the leadership of John Wesley, who was a priest in the Church of England. That Methodist movement also spread to the United States, to the colonies. All during that time, Methodism was part of the Church of England. Now, after 1776, after the colonies gained their independence from Great Britain, the Methodists in America could no longer be in relationship to the Church of England anymore, and so Methodism started as a separate denomination. That took place, the formal formation of Methodism as a church started in 1784. In what was called the Christmas Conference in Baltimore, Maryland, in 1784. Now, at that Christmas conference, when what was called the Methodist Episcopal Church started, there were blacks and whites together. John Wesley was very opposed to slavery. He wrote pamphlets against slavery, and the early Methodists in England and the United States were opposed to slavery. That was part of our discipline, part of our rule book as Methodists. So in 1784, when the Methodist Episcopal Church started, we took a strong stand against slavery. By the way, that term Episcopal, as in Methodist Episcopal Church, that word Episcopal simply means having bishops. So we were the Methodist Episcopal Church, the Methodist church that had bishops. Not a direct relationship with what we now today think of as the Episcopal Church. It was the Methodist Church that had bishops, the Methodist Episcopal Church. Starting in 1784, there were blacks and whites together at that conference. Blacks and whites worshiped together in the same churches in early Methodism. Now, unfortunately, that didn't continue to last for a real long time, at least in not all parts of the United States. Although we started out having a strictly anti-slavery stance, Methodists in America kind of slowly, or not so slowly, drifted away from that anti-slavery stance. And it came to be that Methodists eventually started holding slaves in the United States, which was originally forbidden, but we drifted away from that. Methodists started holding slaves, and in Methodist churches, black folks were usually not welcome to worship with white folks. I'll give you just a couple of examples of that historically to understand where we are today in terms of the different Methodist churches. So in 1786, the Methodist Church in Philadelphia was called St. George's Methodist Episcopal Church. One of the black folks who worshiped there regularly was Richard Allen. He had been at the 1784 Christmas conference. He was there when the Methodist Episcopal Church started. And originally at St. George's Methodist Episcopal Church in Philadelphia, blacks and whites worshiped together. But slowly it became clear that the white folks who were in charge were not welcoming the black folks at St. George's Methodist Episcopal. And so Richard Allen was one of the black leaders of that church, and he and several others left St. George's, and they started in 1786 what became known as the AME, African Methodist Episcopal Church. And again, the African Methodist Episcopal Church still exists to this day, but that's when they got started. Under similar circumstances, unfortunately, similar things were happening all around the United States. Another prominent example of that was in 1796 at St. John's Methodist Episcopal Church in New York City. James Varick was one of the Methodist preachers there. He was black. He had been worshiping there, blacks and whites together had been worshiping there originally, but in 1796, the white folks who were in charge started making the black folks not feel welcome. At first, black folks were not allowed to be seated in the main part of the sanctuary. At first, they were made to just kind of stand along the edges of the sanctuary instead of being seated with the white folks. And then black folks were told they had to sit up in the balcony, up in what was called the gallery, separate from the white folks. And then one Sunday in 1796, James Varick and some other black leaders were worshiping at the St. John's Methodist Episcopal Church, and at one point in the service, he knelt in prayer. And one of the white ushers came up to him and told him, during the middle of the prayer, they said, "You have to stand up. You're not allowed to kneel and pray here. You have to stand up and get out." And James Varick said, he just kind of whispered back, "Just let me finish this prayer." And there was an elder who was leading prayer at the time, and he was just kneeling and praying. And the usher said, "No, you can't even stay long enough to finish this prayer. You have to get up and leave now. If you don't get up and leave now, I will call the other ushers, and we will forcibly remove you from the church." Well, James Varick just continued to kneel there in prayer, and the other ushers did indeed come, and he was forcibly removed from the Methodist Episcopal Church there in 1796. And when he and other black worshipers were removed from the church that day, they said, "We're not going back. We're not going back to St. John's." And sure enough, they didn't. Don't blame them. And they started the AME Zion Church, African Methodist Episcopal Church, Zion. And those two churches are still in existence today. The African Methodist Episcopal Church, AME, and the African Methodist Episcopal Church, Zion, are still in existence today. And we're going to be worshiping this Sunday at Union Bethel AME Zion Church. So historically, that's how the AME Zion Church came into existence. They are still Methodists. They are proud to be Methodists, as we are. And they will tell you straight up when we go there to worship. They'll say, "We are Methodists just like you are." And indeed, that is true. They are just as Methodist as we are. In some respects, they are more Methodist than we are. But they continue to exist as the AME Zion Church. Now, we, of course, at Mount Zion are part of the United Methodist Church. I mentioned that the MEC Church, the Methodist Episcopal Church, got started in 1784. It has taken different twists and turns along the way. It separated North and South before the Civil War, got back together in 1939, and became just the Methodist Church. In 1968, we changed our name again to the United Methodist Church, and that's what we still are today. So we are related, we are cousins, kind of, in the sense that we are all Methodists, but we do belong to these different denominations. We, the United Methodist Church, and some of our neighbors as the African Methodist Episcopal Church, Zion. So when we worship together this Sunday, when we leave Mount Zion and go to worship at the AME Zion Church, we are helping to heal, maybe just in one small, very small way, helping to heal some of the divisions, the painful divisions that have been in existence in Methodism for about 200 years. So the folks at Union Bethel AME Zion Church are very friendly. They're welcoming. They're loving. They will love to see us. They are looking forward to seeing us. We have taken confirmation classes to Union Bethel AME Zion Church before. They always receive us with a lot of grace and love and open-heartedness and kindness. So they're looking forward to being with us and our being with them. I think we'll have a great worship service. I will see you Sunday morning. Be there at 9:50 at Union Bethel AME Zion, and we'll have a great time of worship together. Again, they do ask us to wear masks, and so we will honor their requests and wear masks this Sunday as we visit with them. So I look forward to seeing you, and I'm glad that we had a chance. I just wanted to help explain what some of that terminology means, AME Zion, and how it came to be, and to understand that they are another Methodist church. They're not part of the United Methodist Church, but they are another Methodist church, and we'll be glad to worship with them this Sunday. All right, y'all take care, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye.